Hello, welcome back to the True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Warren.
And I'm Michael.
How's everybody doing? You guys pent up in your houses yet? Getting tired?
You know people are, man. People are going stir crazy. You need another podcast to listen to.
My wife and I were like we uncharacteristically fighting all day yesterday because I've been working. Spoiler alert, like, man, it's a long story, but I got selected as critical personnel to continue doing like our department's work, one of like a handful of people, and it's just bullshit. Everyone else is getting paid vacation and I'm at work. But
yeah, that's bullshit.
So I was working all week, and then I wanted to relax this weekend and kind of hang out and like watch movies and stuff, and she's been pent up all week with the kids because her office closed down like most things, and she wants to be outside, but it was too cold because we live up in the mountains, and it was just like, I'm like, you're terrible to be quarantined with. She's like, and then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what it is like she's been here all week and she's already tired of it, where I'm just like,
that's right.
I just kind of want to be inside because I've been outside all week. I work out in the field, so we had to understand each other for a minute. We're over it now, but it was kind of funny.
Dude, that is the classic struggle of someone who works long hours or works, far away from their home. Yeah. Like you do, you have a drive to work, so you feel like you're out a lot and you're far away from your home. And then you have this nice place that you built perfect for your needs. And it's like sometimes you just want to rest there. You just want to hang out there and rest. But yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, dude. I would say me and my wife, we're a little more irritable. And I think it's just because tensions are high because the kids are here too.
Yep.
And they're bored. And they're eating, and I'm like, stop fucking eating. Stop doing it. Just stop.
We can't exactly go to the grocery store and just buy more all the time.
Right, and they're just eating because they're bored. You know what I mean? And they even do that at school. It's like I asked especially my younger two that are in elementary school, like they eat all the time. My son's like, can I get $1 for snack? I'm like, I already gave you $1 for snack. Oh no, that was for ice cream. I'm like, how many times a day do you fucking eat? Like, it's too many times. Eat breakfast, eat lunch, come home, eat dinner. Okay? Like, it's just too much.
Right. It is what you said. It's boredom for the most part,
dude,
I'm sure.
It is. It's boredom. They're just bored and they want to eat. And I tell them, I'm just like, kick them outside. I mean, we're blessed to live in a place where we have plenty of property and stuff for them to go. So we've just been kicking them outside. And like you said, it's been cold, but it's been the opposite here. We have a rare cold day today, but it was like 80 degrees yesterday. I got sunburned yesterday.
Where I'm at, it's been like low 40s all day long, pretty much still. So and snow on the ground. We got snow the other day too, so we have snow too.
Oh Jesus, get out of here, snow! Oh, dude, I'm ready for spring, bro. I'm ready for spring.
Yeah, no, trust me, we are too. My wife's we're going to be building a greenhouse here in a couple days. We're gathering materials.
Oh, yeah. We
got some old scrap wood from a neighbor, and so we just got to get some like roofing from the hardware store before they maybe close. Who knows? But yeah,
man. Worst case scenario, get some delivered, dude. If it's a small greenhouse, you can probably get like sheet metal and stuff delivered.
Yeah, it's funny how this pandemic is kind of like we're probably doing things. We feel rushed all of a sudden to get a greenhouse up. It's just like, who knows how long this could go on? We might end up needing the food we grow in the greenhouse. Really, like eggs, for instance. We have chickens, and we've been getting eggs, and it's like impossible to get eggs. People are like. My buddy texted me yesterday. He's like, I'll give you 12 9mm rounds for a dozen eggs. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, nah, that's not a good enough deal, dude. I'm going to need like 30 9mm rounds for a dozen eggs, 3-1.
Yeah, there you go.
Eggs are already for eggs.
Dude, that's right. Yeah. My grandparents, they have a shit ton of chickens that's just walking distance from my house, and I help them take care of them, and we actually bought them some more chickens to kind of help, to help fund our part of the eggs. But I mean, we're killing it with eggs right now. But they sell eggs, so I see people pulling up and down their driveway constantly buying.
I'm sure they're killing it now.
Oh, dude, just all the time, and they're giving us 2 or 3 dozen a week. So I can't complain as far as eggs. Man, I got
it's
the
just such a good
done.
deal.
I'm
like
ready
almost
to eat,
everyone should have chickens. If you don't live in an apartment, if you have a house, even if you have a small yard, you can absolutely have chickens. And
guys, yeah, chickens are easy.
They solve multiple problems. Like you have scraps from leftover crap from dinner or whatever it is, instead of throwing it away or give it, like you just go out there and throw it in their thing. They eat that. Like you don't even have to buy them much food after a while. You can just give them all your scraps.
Yep, that's right. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, you got to protect the chickens. You got to like chickens are more savages than you think. There's
for
very
sure.
few things you have to protect chickens from. Maybe like hawks, foxes, but like snakes, chickens will fucking eat a snake alive.
Oh yeah.
Unreal. Like you
Scorpions, they
don't.
eat scorpions. If you have a
It'll eat
scorpion problem at your
scorpions.
house, get a
Yep,
bunch of chickens and let them run around the perimeter of the
they'll
property, and they'll eat them.
dude. They'll peck the shit out of them. I saw one had one in its mouth and it was running from my other chickens when I lived in Nevada. It was running from them because it was such a fine commodity. They all wanted to eat the scorpion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, dude, they're savages.
Yep.
Savages. Speaking of savages, how about Lizzie Halliday, huh? You want to talk
Dude.
about her today or what?
We're going to talk about Lizzie Halliday.
Hell yeah.
At
we
one
are.
point in time, she was known as the worst woman on earth. You know,
That's right.
dubbed that by the New York Times.
That's
So,
right.
If that doesn't intrigue you and pique your interest to hear this case, this one was kind of one that I stumbled on. I've never heard of her. I hadn't heard of her, and then I don't know how I found her. You know, there's a book that we'll talk about, but yeah, she's pretty interesting, pretty savage for sure. That's a good word for her.
Absolute.
And I have
savage.
a character in a movie that she reminds me of a lot that popped in my head that we'll talk about. So let's hear the
Okay.
intro and dive into it. Keep you guys
let's do it.
entertained during your quarantine, your quarantainment.
Quarantainment. Entertainment for your quarantainment.
Yeah, man. Cue it up.
All right, let's do it. Did you or did you not kill those people? If it was me, I was crazy. I was drugged. Don't tell me no lie. Did you kill those people? She said, what shall I say, dear? Then she smiled and shrugged. Are you guilty? Are you innocent? Are you sane or are you crazy? Tell me now. May be able to help you, but it's drawn mighty close to the midnight hour. Explain yourself to me. You have no reason, no rhyme. She said my head feels bad now. I'll tell you some other time. I'll tell you some other time. Some other time. Tell you some other time. My head feels bad now. Tell you some other time.
All right, our case this week is Lizzie Halliday, who was a serial killer from the 1800s. She was once dubbed by the New York Times as the worst woman on earth. And even at one point, much of the country believed, at least for a short time, that she was the notorious murderer known as Jack the Ripper, responsible for the Whitechapel murders in London. So people started connecting dots because she disappeared for a few years,
Right.
you know, in the middle of a kind of a killing spree, crime spree. And that was coincidentally right at the same time.
The only problem I have with that theory is what's the motive? You know what I mean? What's the motive for it's? I feel like everyone else she killed was, you know, for a reason, for money or for property or for something to prove a point. But
I pretty much have every problem with it. I don't.
yeah, I don't
think
believe this at
there's
all,
like a-
right?
No, not at all. I think it was bullshit. But we'll get into the details of that. But it would just been way too hard for her to go over there. And why would she do it? She was in America, and like how she got here was already tough. And it's not like she had any money, you know, like
Right.
going from America to London to kill a few people and then coming back to America again for what? I don't know. She could have just done.
yeah.
She was already killing people in America, so.
Yeah. What most likely happened was she went under another alias and moved to another town and probably
Yeah.
did some other horrible shit there
Oh,
that
for sure.
we never found out about. And then she came back. That's probably what really happened.
Yep.
Because horrible shit followed her. That is one thing we know for a fact.
Yeah, and I mentioned she reminded me of a movie character. It was Daisy Domergue from The Hateful Eight, the crazy redheaded woman that Kurt Russell was transporting, who had murdered people and was just insane. That's a pretty good comparison for Lizzie Halliday, I think. And they could have even loosely based Daisy Domergue's character off of Lizzie because it was kind of the same time period too. You know, the 1800s. So
yeah, a little firecracker, man. You just didn't know what she was capable of.
Yeah, she was known as a powerful woman. She had a snout for a nose, which people remarked at. She had a very interesting facial structure, like a kind of a pig-looking nose.
So it just kind of up-tilted a little bit, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't take much for people to have that pig-looking nose. If your nose is not, like, level coming off, if it just comes up just a tiny bit, it's
you can see the nostrils from a front profile.
From a front profile, right. They said her complexion was very clear, though. Everyone said that. She had very, very good
she had great skin
for the 1800s, which is amazing, you know? She wasn't doing any masks or anything like that, so...
Yeah.
So there you go, people. You don't need all that shit.
She also, there's multiple reasons why I wanted to do this. Another reason is because she has a connection to a case that we did that a lot of people loved, Nellie Bly. Nellie Bly appears in this story as well. So,
yes. And I'm also
if you haven't heard that story, maybe stop this. If you haven't heard our Nellie Bly episode, go back, listen to that one, and then listen to this one. It might make this better. Most of you, I'm assuming, have already heard that one. So.
Right. They tie in very
and
nicely.
It's also convenient timing to do this case because she was Irish and red-haired, and it was just St. Patty's Day this past weekend. So it kind of passed by. I think everybody hardly even realized it was St. Patty's Day just because of everything else that's going on. Unfortunately, it's one of my favorite holidays too. We usually cook cabbage and
corned beef and cabbage, bro.
and listen to Irish music.
That's what I had, corned beef and cabbage.
Yeah?
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, man, I'm a quarter Irish, bro. I got it going on over here.
No, I'm kind of bummed that we didn't celebrate it this year. Because usually we do kind of, we have some green beers and eat some cabbage and corned beef and listen. I love Irish music. I don't listen to it very often. It's not something you just break out like as you're driving to work or something. But
right.
When you're hanging out with friends and drinking, it's fun to listen to that. So,
man, we should have FaceTimed. We could have had our St. Patty's Day celebration together.
Yeah, but I couldn't have eaten your corned beef through the phone. Unfortunately, I would have just been jealous.
Right. Oh, I thought you said you had some too.
No, I say we usually do. This year it just kind of skipped right by. We didn't realize it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you would have been.
So the book we used, the book we used for this case was "Murderer's Gulch: Carnage in the Catskills" by C.J. March. Very dry, just a detailed account of the story. You said you fell asleep the first time listening to it.
Yeah, I mean detailed for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think it has a little bit to do with the narrator as well. Not my favorite narrator. Very dry. I don't like when the narrator never changes tones. Even when you're saying things like, she stabbed her 200 times with scissors. It's like, okay, can I get a little bit of emphasis here? Can I get a little bit of something?
Yeah, some passion.
Something to set this scene apart. I mean, this sounds like the same thing as her being wheeled into the asylum. Like, I wanna have some kind of differentiation between these big events. Yeah. And I think that's really what made the book seem so dry, because it's chock full of information. It's the most detailed account of Lizzie Halliday that I could find.
I mean, if you just go to Wikipedia, you're not going to get a tenth of the information that we have in this crime line, because I used that book as a source, and I basically it was one of those books where it's an hour and a half in audio form. It's on Audible, but literally it was one of those where I had to pause it every minute or every 30 seconds to type out, because it's just that hour and a half is all important information about this case. So, yeah, and there's not much else out there as far as articles, because it is such an old case. So, yeah, I mean, C.J. March, I don't know what he really dove deep into all kinds of different stuff to get this. A lot of the information that we got is thanks to Nellie Bly, who actually got Daisy. Or not Daisy, actually Lizzie. Got see, that's how similar they're. That's actually got Lizzie to open up in the asylum a little bit, because Lizzie was not easy to get talking. Reporters tried, and she wasn't talking.
Well, it was part of her thing. I mean, if you're going to claim insanity, you got to stay insanity in front of all the cameras, all of the reporters. You know what I mean? Not cameras, rather, but all the reporters.
So let's dive into it from the beginning. She was born Eliza Margaret McNally in County Antrim, Ireland in 1864.
Back in the
The
motherland.
exact, yeah. Get your Irish accents warmed up, people. The exact date was not known, unfortunately, so we couldn't do the birthdays. But sometime in
dang it.
1864 in Ireland, she was born approximately 15 years after the Great Potato Famine. So I'm sure that was still residing in everyone. You know, her parents were still feeling the effects of that.
Right.
Yeah,
She
that was
probably
a
came from
brutal time.
a very modest home, a very conservative home
Oh,
as
for
far
sure.
as, money and supplies and things like that. Much like you meet people who live through the depression here. They have a different
Yeah.
mindset, you know what I mean? Even though they're comfortable and have plenty of what they need, they're still very reserved. They're still hesitant. It's like they've been scarred by that. And I bet her
Well,
parents were, you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, on a small scale, we've seen how fast infrastructure can fall apart recently. How quickly it can become kind of difficult to get food for your family. You know, we're so used to just going to
Right.
the grocery. What if the grocery store doesn't have the food anymore, though? What the fuck do you do then?
That's
You
right.
know,
That's
or what
right.
if you have no money because the economy fell, like you said, with the Great Depression, failed you
Yeah.
so bad that you have you standing in lines for a piece of bread. That stuff, like we have all this infrastructure that makes us feel so safe, but it can collapse in a second.
That's
You
right.
know, and that's I think people that live through that kind of stuff, they always have that in the back of their head, like this could happen tomorrow again. So you can never feel completely comfortable. That's
That's right.
why some of your great grandparents were, keeping. They were very conservative about food. They didn't want to waste anything. You know, what I mean, like they get kind of disgusted by seeing people throw away stuff that's still good, that type of thing.
Right. And I also understand people who are older and they're hoarders. Like I think we say that a lot. I think almost everybody that I talk to has older
Yeah.
people, older generations in their family, and you're just like, they got so much shit. They just got buildings and buildings full of shit. But the more shit you have, the more, numerical value that is, the more money value that is, and also you never know when you might need something. You know what I'm saying? And if you have it all there, it's like, yeah, it's taking up a lot of space, but at the same time, it's there. It's in your possession. If everything
Yep.
falls out, you know what I mean? Like I see the draw to both sides. Like I'm the type of person that's like, oh, I haven't used that in 3 months. Get it the fuck out of here. You know, it's just like I
Yeah.
don't I don't need that anymore. But I haven't lived through a depression. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
understand when people are coming from that point of view. I understand that.
Yeah, that Great Potato Famine was brutal. It like took out like 20% of the population. It killed like 1 million people. That basically all the food that they had was mostly potatoes. They didn't have a lot of other food options, and they had rot in the potatoes, some kind of disease, to where the
Right.
potatoes became unedible. Yeah, it was brutal. Look into it.
Do you think that may have played a little bit of effect on Lizzie as far as her growing up and being like, I need to take what I can get when I can get it? You know what I
Perhaps
mean?
maybe
Because
that
she
was
didn't
something
want to
that was
live that
kind
life.
of yeah, maybe that was sewed into her. I know, like we've talked about it before, but I know people who were really poor growing up, and their parents didn't really let them get anything. You know, every birthday they wanted this thing, and they never got it. You know, that type of thing. And they're the people I know that are the most. They buy everything now. They stimulate the shit
Yeah.
out of the economy. My
Yeah.
buddy, that we worked with for a while, he's like got $60,000 truck that's lifted with all the big. He buys everything. He's got all the toys in his garage and everything. And if
Yep.
you ask him, it's just like, I was poor growing up. I never got what I wanted. So now that I make money, I mean, he works his ass off. Don't get me wrong. He makes a lot of money.
Oh yeah,
So
he
does his
does.
wife, and his wife's the same way. She grew up poor, and they both just like they spoil the shit out of their kids. They race their kids in off road races and stuff, and like the kids have the best side by side available with all the upgrades and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
there might be a little part of that with her where she went without, and now she just fuck it. I'm going to take what I want. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So she was her family moved to the United States with her parents 3 years later when she was 3 years old in 1867 on what was called a coffin ship. This was pretty interesting. Coffin ships were overloaded ships in poor condition commonly used during the time. They were deliberately overinsured, which made them more valuable if they sank than if they stayed afloat. These ships had a 30% mortality rate and were known to be followed by sharks due to the amount of bodies that were thrown overboard. So,
That's insane, dude.
and
It's
these
like
trips on these coffin ships took anywhere from 40 days to 3 months. So just a hellish trip from Ireland to
oh,
the United States for
just
her and
depending
her
on the
family.
weather, probably or whatever.
Yeah.
What kind of diseases hit you while you're out on the sea? Oh my
hmm
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a brutal trip right there.
Yeah, you thought Jose Vagoa's trip from Cuba to America was bad. That was only like 90 miles. This is 40-day trip minimum, with bodies being tossed overboard all the time and sharks following it, and
Dude, that's
hoping it doesn't fucking sink.
right. And see that even I feel like that is another check in her column for kind of being raised this way. Like death and human life. I mean,
Yeah.
look how much death she saw. I mean, she
Yep.
literally saw bodies being thrown overboard to sharks while coming to. I mean, death was just a normal part of her life.
I definitely thought about that. You have just you look at life as a lot less valuable when you see people dying around you. You've seen disease, you've seen the worst
Right.
of the
And
worst.
you
We've
also, I was going to say, you
how
also
many of
see
us-
the people keep going. The life keeps going. You notice that afterwards. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
She just keeps
yeah,
trucking.
yeah. Your life goes on. Yep. Yeah. Not much is known of her early years in America, but they must have been incredibly hard, as we kind of discussed. She was a young, poor girl from Ireland growing up in a tumultuous time in America. Early America was, America was still kind of figuring things out too. And I think she was in the New York area growing up, and I don't know how close to the 5 Points area, but we talked about, the 1800s
Yeah.
in New York and how crazy violent that was too, and death all around.
And very competitive. Everybody's still
Yes.
divided. She probably lived in a
Yep.
just Irish community. You know what I'm saying? And then there was an Italian community and this and that. But yeah, I'm sure it was very cutthroat in those early days. Even when she came to America, it's still no relief. It's not like she came to America and boom, happy life.
Right. And also being a young girl during that time, like you're not given any opportunities either,
Right. That's
It
right.
was still definitely a man's world during that time.
right.
She would end up marrying at the age of 15. She would marry an older man named Charles Hopkins. He was also known as CATSKILLS Brown.
Cool. Man.
He was most well known for abandoning during the world. During the war, he deserted
Oh,
the
not
war.
Cool,
So
Pool.
yeah,
Not cool, Pool.
yeah,
Probably why he changed his name.
yeah. He ended up dying 2 years after they were married. It's unknown the exact. She says that it was typhoid fever, but knowing what she does later, this could have very well been her first victim.
Right.
But typhoid fever is also quite possible considering the time. Sickness was a problem back then. People died all the time of different illnesses. The medicine had not progressed to the point where we're at now. So
Right. And this is not too much of a spoiler, but Lizzie had kind of a attraction to military and veterans because
anyone with a pension.
because they had a pension, right? So she may have been with Mr. CATSKILLS Brown here because thinking that when he gets out, he's going to have a pension. And then when he deserted, she was like, sorry, I don't have any use for you anymore. You know what I'm saying? Because, you don't get it's not like an honorable discharge. So he's not getting anything. He didn't get shit.
Right.
He probably deserted. So he's like, now we can be together. And she's like, ooh, sorry. That was the only thing keeping us together. Awkward.
Yeah, I really liked that check you had coming in.
Yeah.
Don't like your face too much, you old
No.
bastard.
God.
Get away from me, you old fucker.
Right. But I give you a dose of the typhoid fever.
So he would die, and she would end up moving into a small apartment above a blacksmith and took up work as a washer. Soon she married again. This is a common theme. She would find older men that had pension checks, marry them, and then they would a lot of times die quickly after that.
That's right.
This time she married a man named Artemis Brewer, described by the New York Times as a veteran and pensioner. He died after less than a year of marriage, not before enduring beatings and hair pullings from Lizzie, who called him a, quote, a bad old man.
I don't know. Maybe you like that. That doesn't really sound like awful.
some old guys are into that, step on their balls with high heels
Bad
on
old
and all that.
man. There's a lot worse things you could be called. I don't.
It does sound mildly entertaining and even
Beatings
sexual.
and hair pulling.
Bad old man. Especially with an Irish
who's a
accent.
bad old
do
man?
it. Do it in an Irish accent, Michael.
He's a bad old man.
That makes it even better. You dirty old man.
You dirty old man, you. Come here. Take your beatings like a bad old man, you are.
Oh, for sure he liked it. I think I'd even like this. It sounds good.
Right.
Another quote from the New York Times said, "Whether these men died natural deaths or were murdered is not known." So
It's known now, brother.
Yeah. Her next relationship was Hiram Parkinson, who had a long white beard and mustache and allegedly deserted her within a year. She claimed that she found out he was already married and kicked him out, but then common theory is that he actually deserted her, which good call, brother, because
Yeah. She probably tried to
end
kill
up
him.
in the ground if you're around her too long.
Yeah, she probably tried to kill him, or he was onto her, or was like, maybe the beatings were getting worse or whatever, and he was like, you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and dip out.
Yeah.
He's the only one that escaped, wasn't he?
No, a couple people got out. She tried to
a couple
poison
people got
another
out.
one, and he escaped.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. The guy that survived the poison, yeah.
That's actually the next one. She then next married George Smith, a veteran and comrade of her second husband. So this guy knew her second husband,
Wow,
Brewer.
what a dumbass.
This is a quote from her. I think that Nellie Bly acquired this quote from her later. Quote, "He was an old soldier and drew a pension, so I married him."
Well, there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
That's all it required, you know? Just show her that pension check
What
and
else do you
she'll
need to
get
know,
hitched.
laddie?
Within a few months of marriage, she tried to kill Smith by giving him a cup of poisoned tea, failing to accomplish the murder. So supposedly he was like writhing on the floor in pain, and she was laughing at him. But laugh was he got the last laugh because he actually survived. And failing to accomplish the murder, she fled to Bellows Falls, Vermont, taking with her every portable item in the house. So she took all of his stuff and fled to Vermont.
Wow. Just left him there to die.
Yeah.
Now, was
While
it
in
clear
Vermont-
that she knew that he lived through it? I didn't.
I
wasn't
think
sure
so. I
if
think
that
that's why
became
she
clear.
fled. I think that's why
Okay.
she fled.
So she realized that he lived and that he was probably telling authorities or spreading the word, and then so she dipped
Right.
out. Okay.
While in Vermont, Lizzie married Charles Plaisdell and lived with him for about 2 weeks before disappearing. This is the one husband she ever said anything fond about, and he was the youngest husband. Coincidentally, he wasn't an old pensioner.
Right.
Charles was by far the youngest of Lizzie's husbands and the only one she spoke or even remotely fond of. Quote, this is another quote from her. "He was a lovely husband. He always gave me all of his money to me."
Well, what? It's just what you want in a woman, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my
She
God.
claims that she left him after he admitted to, quote, pounding his first wife to death. So he had beaten his first wife to death, and he had told her this, and that's she decided to get the hell out of there.
Wow, she should have just told him her past, and they would have been the perfect couple, and they could have
know,
lived
right?
together and just dealt with their shit.
You know what, laddie? We have a lot in common.
I'm a poisoner myself.
I too have many notches on my belt of former husbands that are now on the ground.
Oh my gosh. Well, what a couple.
Yeah. Lizzie then disappeared for a couple of years around this time, and this is where the legend came to be that she might have been Jack the Ripper, because coincidentally at this time, for the few years that she disappeared around 1888, was the same time that women in Whitechapel, London were brutally slain, leaving people to later speculate that Lizzie was indeed Jack the Ripper. However, we think that's a load of horse shit. It's just she just happened to be off using a different alias in America and doing who knows what, but
Right.
it's just such a stretch. You know, it doesn't even really fit her MO. Like the people she killed for more for utility and just to rip them
And
off
for money,
or whatever.
right? But here,
Yeah,
but check this out. Just something that just occurred to me. If she was able to make it to London somehow, right? She would probably have to live and survive in the London underworld because she wouldn't know anyone. She would probably, basically be on the street.
she might have been a victim of Jack the Ripper if she was over there. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that when you're on the street and then you see these prostitutes or these sex workers, rather, I guess what we're calling them now, they are getting money, right? They're walking around with money and they're basically unarmed.
Yeah.
They're unprotected, especially from women. Like, even if they did have protection on the street, they're probably not, they're not eyeballing suspicious women. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe
Right.
it was, who knows? I'm just saying, it's just totally off the wall
So
theory. But it kind of makes sense that she would be in that area, in that society.
So you're playing devil's advocate, saying
Right.
that there is some motive there. Like she could have been killing them for the money. But my point is the way that they were killed, with the grand display, blood on the walls and all that stuff, was done more for dramatic effect, which wasn't really her MO. She killed, like we said, for utility, and she wasn't
Very
trying
true.
to have the bodies found necessarily.
Very true.
If they were found, they were found. But so
I
don't know.
I
It's
don't
just
believe
such a
it is.
stretch.
That's the only.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah. So in the winter of 1888, Lizzie would resurface in Philadelphia. She turned up at a saloon that was run by the McQuillans, who were actually friends, family friends, neighbors of hers back in Ireland. At this time, she was going by the name Maggie Hopkins, and she would arrange to stay with the McQuillan family, who had, as we mentioned, been the McNally's neighbors in Ireland. She would end up opening a small shop for a short amount of time there in Philadelphia, and just long enough to basically get insurance on the building and then burn it down for the insurance money, which is another thing she was known for. Arson by basically with the means of getting paid out by insurance companies. She loved to do that.
Right.
She loved the free payday,
Apparently very easy to do in that time.
Oh yeah. Oh, back then the insurance investigations, I'm sure, were a joke. Like they couldn't go around and I'm sure they weren't very good at discovering the source of what started the fire like they are now. They can figure out whether it was electrical, whether there was an accelerant in there, that type of thing. They just go, oh yeah, it's in ashes. All right, here's your check.
Yeah. All right. Well, why would anyone want to destroy their own business? Here you go.
Right. Here's this large check for you. Yeah, she loved a free payday, whether it was an old pensioner that she could marry and kill and then get paid out, or whether it was an insurance check on a burnt building.
That's right.
She would do this time and time again. She's kind of like a female Panzram a little bit too, just kind of going around from place to place, wreaking havoc.
Yeah, she is.
Burning shit down, killing people.
A little less bold. She was a little more behind the scenes than Panzram.
Yeah, a little sneakier about it.
Did not give a fuck. But,
right, yeah. Panzram would do it right in front of the police. He wouldn't care, and then he'd probably hold them down too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Lizzie was actually ended up being arrested for that arson though on her business and insurance fraud. So I think maybe that was probably due to witnesses. Maybe not so much they figured out how the building was burnt down, but some people probably she went around talking. Who knows? But she would end up served because that's like the only one she ever got busted for as far as insurance fraud.
You know what really boggles me about this moment in time is that she's in Philadelphia, right? And she's with people who know her, not only know her, but know her family.
Yeah.
And then she's trying to go by an alias. And then she's trying to start a business, I guess, with that alias right across the street from people who know her.
Yeah, and then she burns it down.
Right. It just wasn't a very smart move. I think you should have went far away from anyone who knew you. Because was she using this alias? Obviously, she couldn't use this alias with the McQuillan family. So there had to have been a lot of, oops, didn't mean to call you Lizzie there,
Right.
or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I feel like she was bound to get caught here. There was just too many loose ends.
Yeah, probably all the insurance company had to do was go asking around, and then they're like, "Oh, you mean Lizzie? Oh, you mean sorry? What's she going by again?
What is she?
Like,
What is
how many names does this woman have?
What's the name on the building lease? I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she would end up serving 2 years in the Eastern Penitentiary in Philadelphia. And at some point after her release, she turned up in Newburgh, New York, where she met Paul Halliday, a 70-year-old widower living in Birmingham with his sons on a farm. Although only one son still lived on the farm with him, who had some issues by accounts of the brothers and the family. He was known to be slow. Yeah, so the son that was still living on the farm.
His name was
She
John,
went to work,
I believe. John Halliday.
John, yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about John. So she meets this Paul Halliday. She begins working for him as a housekeeper, and eventually he married her. It was one step away. And marriage was just like thrown around like crazy, if you can't tell during this time. It was just like, you're kind of an all right fella. Let's get married. Let's get hitched.
Yeah, why not?
It's like you meet someone within a few days. You're like, I can stand your presence a little bit. Let's get married. Or I like your pension, whatever it is.
Right. Well, I'm sure divorces weren't as expensive as they are now.
Yeah, and life was just more. It wasn't taken for granted like it is now. Like you're not expected to live a long time. You're like, who knows what's going to happen next week? I might get typhoid fever. Let's get hitched.
Let's get hitched. let's start a family.
Yeah,
exactly.
So she goes to work for this Paul Halliday. That's how she gets the Halliday last name, if you can't tell.
Right.
And she marries him. And though the neighbors later said the marriage was just his way of avoiding to have to pay her, so she's marrying him because he's an old rich, not an old guy with some money.
Oh, he gonna pay
he's
her.
marrying her. He's marrying her because he's a cheap bastard that doesn't want to pay for his housekeeping.
Right.
So, kind of funny.
That is funny.
Their marriage was marred by what Paul described as Lizzie's sporadic spells of insanity. The son that still remained, John, as we had mentioned, was described as crippled and half-witted by his brothers, and Lizzie wanted him gone from the start. She wanted basically her and Paul to be on this farm, probably so she could get away with whatever she's going to do to Paul at some point without a witness.
Right.
Paul and Lizzie had been married for less than a year when Paul returned home one day to find that the family cabin had been burnt to the ground. He's then freaking out. Their family home on the farm is burnt to ashes, and he's running around the farm looking for his family, his wife and his son. He searched the farm for his wife and son and found Lizzie sitting placidly in the barn as if nothing was wrong. When he asked her where John was, she simply grinned and pointed at the pile of ashes where the cabin used to stand.
That's dark.
Yeah.
But
Neighbors,
he kept her around. I mean,
yeah,
on,
you know
Paul.
what?
Come on, Paul.
Paul really.
It's your own fucking fault, Paul.
I don't know what it was that he saw in Lizzie, man, because he kept just seeing the only good in her somehow. No matter what she did, she could like stab him in the gut and he would still bring her back over and over again.
That's
crazy.
What makes me think that this is what made me. It basically confirmed to me that Lizzie was not crazy. I don't think she's insane.
She was calculated.
All.
She wasn't crazy. She was calculated.
No, she's not crazy.
Everything she did was calculated. She was not crazy. If she acted crazy, that was also calculated,
Right. She was just willing to do things that we as in a normal society deem as crazy. Just because someone is willing to do those things does not mean they themselves are insane. And I don't think she was. She was just bad. She was
when
mean.
When it comes down to out of how many cases we've done, well over 100 at this point, how many cases have we covered where you would actually say legitimately this person, if you were a juror, would let them off on insanity? I would say maybe one or two, like Herbert Mullen.
Mullen, number one.
He comes to mind for sure. Yeah. Like his brain was just gone, warped from drugs and everything else. But very few. I think most people, they like you said, they do things that most of us are not willing to do, and then we look at them like, how are you not crazy if you did this act? Well, it's like, it's not the same thing. The question is, do they know what they're doing? Do they have any control? Did they know what they were doing was wrong? And 99% of the time, yeah, they did.
Yeah, because if she didn't know, then there would be evidence of it, and she just hid things too well to not know that they were wrong. It's just
like the crimes that Herbert Mullen did, like killing the priest and like right there in church, like in the middle of the church,
right?
Like things like that, where he's just like, okay, that I don't think he even thought about it. He just did it, and he didn't care if anyone saw him do it. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
And there was nothing to gain from it either. It's just gone.
Absolutely.
So neighbors said that they had witnessed Lizzie sitting on a stump and watching the cabin burn. They suspected that Lizzie had locked up John in his room and torched the house with him inside. Paul's other boys had been warning their father about Lizzie this whole time, and they believed that Lizzie had murdered John first with an axe and then set the fire to cover it up. Lizzie was initially arrested but set free due to lack of evidence to prove that she had murdered John or started the fire.
I tend to think that the boys are right. I do think that she murdered him and then just left his body in the house and burnt the whole thing down. I think that was just the easiest thing because it's two birds, one stone, right? You get insurance for the house as well. You might as well leave the body in there. And I think that because John was 35 years old. Okay, I don't know if we mentioned that or not, but I do remember that from the book. At this time, he was 35 years old. He's just a little younger than Lizzie. Mm-hmm. And he must have been coherent and sane enough to cause her problems that she wanted him gone. Because if he's just like a kid, why wouldn't you just send him off or give him chores to do or this or that? He's obviously a little more coherent and probably a little more on to her than what we knew. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And also, in order to get rid of him in this type of way, in this definite way, with nothing to really gain other than the insurance from the house, which you could have burned down without him in there. So that's why I think.
But at the same time, though, I think she's so callous and like so careless when it comes to life, and like gives so little value to life other than her own, that I think even the slightest nuisance in her life, she went from town to town doing whatever the fuck she wanted all the time.
Right.
And even the slightest kind of like annoyance, which is what maybe John was, is just like, I'd rather just kill him and not have to even like look at him anymore. I almost feel like she was that cold. So it could have been like what you said, like maybe he was onto her, or maybe she was just like, this fucker's annoying me. I'm going to off him. It could have been that simple.
Right. Yeah, it very well could have been.
Yeah, she was that evil in a sense.
Oh, no doubt.
So Paul, however, he still could only see good in her and believed her, and he began to rebuild the cabin. And it only took 2 weeks for Lizzie to strike again. She would burn down the barn. This time she admitted to starting the fire to Paul and said that she did it because she wanted a new one. And insurance, believe it or not, would be paid out on both the cabin and the barn, even though both were burned down within 2 weeks. You'd think just the pure coincidence of that,
God,
for the insurance company would be like,
of insurance. If it's that easy to commit insurance fraud, it's like you almost can't blame her at that point. It's just like, man, they run out of money building the cabin. It's like, why don't we just burn the barn down? We could add another bedroom onto this cabin, get a new barn.
If I'm the insurance company, I'd be like, even if you didn't start these intentionally, if you're that careless when it comes to like danger with fire, that both of your fucking main structures on your property were burnt down within 2 weeks, like you're just too dumb. Like, I'm not paying you. I just thought of that. Like, how could 2 things burn down within 2 weeks?
Can you imagine what Paul's insurance was on those things afterwards? Whew.
Oh, God. The premiums.
Oh, my God. Ridiculous.
Right. Around this time, Lizzie finally admitted to Paul that she had been married before. He was under the impression that she had never been married, maybe even a virgin, who knows. She told him that she didn't like her first husband, so she killed him by bashing him over the head with a big stone while he slept. So that kind of, if you
Paul's
believe
like,
that,
that's nice.
what
Good
she
night,
told
honey.
him, that clears up. That clears things up as far as the first husband. Remember how we were saying, because she was only 15 when she had that first husband, and we were like, the one that died from typhoid fever.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to tend to believe her, because she proves that she's capable of doing these type of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Paul still didn't attempt to evict or divorce Lizzie, but he began to take precautions. He started to maintain a journal that he had called Lizzie's Crimes, and he wrote down, the fires with the barns, his son being inside one of them, and just kind of random different stuff that he had seen her do. That's where the book that we read, I'm sure, got some information too, was from old Paul's little journal there.
Dude, maybe he was just straight up afraid of Lizzie, He was like, what can I do with her? If I kick her out, she'll come back and kill me. You know what I mean? If I divorce her, she'll take half of everything and then kill me. Like,
he's in a tough spot.
There's nothing you can do. I don't think it's any type of infatuation. I think it's just fear. And I think this part of the story confirms that, with him borrowing this handgun for his own protection.
Yeah, so he would end up borrowing a handgun from a neighbor.
Right.
For protection, and maybe not the best idea, as we'll find out. People in Burlingham would later speculate that Lizzie had to do with mysterious disappearances during the time in the Burlingham area. She's living at Paul's farm in Burlingham, and some murders happened that were unsolved, that they were kind of like pointing, it could have been her. A 14-year-old boy had gone missing, and in the summer of 1890, a body of a man was found at the entrance of an old mine. He had been shot through the head with a large caliber weapon. He was a peddler, and the motive was believed to be robbery. So this is a well-off peddler that was kind of crucial to the economy, a guy going around selling stuff and whatnot. And he'd been shot through the head and ripped off near the farm in some mine. And later we would find out this was, in fact, Lizzie.
Right, but what about the 14-year-old boy? I don't think that was Lizzie. That doesn't seem like her MO.
I wouldn't put it past her. I don't
Yeah,
think
but what's to gain from it, though? That seems like a waste of time if you're Lizzie. It's like, what does this boy have? Did he have money? Did his parents send him to town with money? Maybe in that sense, okay. But I don't see why she would take a 14-year-old boy. I don't get that.
Yeah, who knows? That was never known who took that boy.
Right. It just happened around that time, right? We're not contributing that to her. Okay.
Yeah. There was also a gang of local gypsies. Locals had initially assumed that the killing was the work of the gypsies, being the peddler that we talked about. They also said that Lizzie had been a member of that gypsy group prior and perhaps during the time of her marriage to Paul, so she may have been running off and doing acts with these gypsies and been like they even speculated she was like the leader of the gang. And when she married Paul, she was kind of like sworn out of the gypsies and like they named a new leader type of thing. It seemed far-fetched to me, like
Right.
It's like a fairy tale type of thing, but there were definitely gypsies at this time that were kind of bands of people that were running around living with no homes and just kind of committing crimes and stuff.
Well, and there is a lot of her timeline that's unaccounted for, Lauren. You know, there's a lot of running around. Maybe when we thought she went to London, she's out leading a group of gypsies.
Right.
And
that was another nickname
that
for
was
her, I
hard
think,
work.
wasn't that one of the nicknames she had too? The Gypsy Queen or something like that?
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
Gypsy Queen.
So less than a year after burning down the cabin and barn, Lizzie hired a wagon and team of horses, then convinced a local man to hit the road with her, paying him $1 per day to run the team of horses. So she was leaving Paul and she was heading back out on the road again.
That's good money.
And she had this scheme that she was going to do. She was going to act like she was married to this man, and they were going to go from town to town trading the horses for more valuable items until they were rich. But they weren't her horses to sell, so she was basically stealing these horses that she was supposed to be just kind of using temporarily.
Right.
And the owner of horses was prepared for this. I mean, he had to know that someone would try this at some point. He probably had dealt with this before, and he was able to track down his horses from the different buyers and eventually even track down Lizzie and her accomplice. The two were arrested, and while arrested, Lizzie immediately began acting violently. She was quickly deemed to be insane, which I'm sure was intentional on her part. She was known to do this when she was locked up. She would act crazy as shit.
I think that was her just backdoor response. It's like, I got nothing else I can do here. Okay, I'm insane.
Yep. Her husband, Paul, would show up and contest that Lizzie was totally sane but acting violent in an attempt to escape punishment. So here's a notch on the other side from your theory of him being afraid of her. Why would he go get her out of jail and say that she's sane to police and everything if he was so afraid of her? You'd think he'd leave her locked up and try and figure something out.
Right.
It's not his fault she left. It's not his fault she's locked up. So maybe do you think he's afraid that if he doesn't come get her out, when she does get out, she's like, you didn't come get me, you fucker, I'm going to kill you now?
Exactly. Because horse theft is not enough to keep you in prison very long at all.
Right.
So she's going to get out. You know what I'm saying? But but in Paul's defense, he did tell the authorities that she was totally sane and acting violent. Yeah. So he did say that at least.
Right.
So I don't know.
So yeah, that would be a point of contention for years to come regarding Lizzie Halliday. Some were on the side of that she was insane. Others were in the camp of she's fully aware of what she's doing and she's trying to use the system against itself.
Yep.
You can tell which side we're on. When Lizzie was brought in front of a judge for the charges of horse thievery, she shrieked and thrashed around, pulling at her own hair, and the judge would end up believing the act and siding with the jailer's assessment that the woman was insane and dropped the charges. She was brought to the Middletown Asylum, however, and then to Matawan Hospital for the Criminally Insane, which she would become she would get quite accustomed to the Matawan Hospital because she would end up there again later on in the story.
Right. Now, the way that the Nellie Bly episode really helps understand this is during this time, women were called insane for literally nothing. Like if the
husband got tired of them, they would take them and just drop them off.
They would take them and drop them off. So, and they didn't understand this. And a lot of it could be misinterpretation of menstrual cycles. Like they even said that, they even mentioned that in the book. It could just be a misunderstanding of the female anatomy. And they think that women were insane all the time. Paul himself.
Paul, her husband, that was like what he always leaned on. It's like, oh, it's just her time of the month type of thing or whatever it was.
Right, right. And so women were called insane for anything. So when you see a woman thrashing, pulling her own hair, biting people, it's like, whoa, it's like no question, obviously insane.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So that's why I think it was so easy for her to play this game. Like you said earlier, she played the system against itself. She exposed all the weaknesses and played the game she needed to play to do what she needed to do.
Yeah. And so she would end up spending 2 years at Matawan before being released and deemed cured at Paul Halliday's request. So that's another thing is like if you were going to get out of one of these asylums, it's like you had to have a man come in and get you. They had to have somewhere to release you to.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, don't you remember that from the Nellie Bly episode too? It was like the husband would drop him off, and then if the husband came back and said, all right, I'm ready to take her back, they would just give him back to him. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
It's
here?
like you haven't even been around her for the last 2 months. How do you know she's sane now? It's like, she's sane. My dishes
Yeah.
and laundry are really piling up.
That's what it was, right?
That's really what it was. Yeah. It's bullshit,
Jesus.
man.
Shortly after bringing Lizzie back home, Paul disappeared. Paul was well liked in the community and made frequent trips to town. After only a few days, people knew something was wrong. He was kind of the guy that would frequently come to town, and he was involved in the gossip. A lot of the gossip in town came from Paul. Like he, almost
Right.
like the town depended on him because he was keeping them entertained with different stories and whatnot.
Also, you got to remember, Paul was over 70 years old when they married. Like, most
Right.
people didn't live past their 50s. So this guy had been
Yeah.
around. Like, he lived through generations, in this town. I mean, he was a real staple, I'd imagine.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and so people recognized that he was missing right away when they didn't see him in town. And the neighbors, that he also was really well liked by all of his neighbors.
Right.
When Paul's sons came to check on their father, they found Lizzie cleaning the house and singing. She told them that Paul had gone away for a few days to Burlingham to make payment on a piece of land. The sons pretended to believe her and left, however, only to a neighbor's house, where they returned with the neighbors to question Lizzie further. However, she stuck to her story. They then pretended to leave again, but stayed nearby to keep an eye on the farm. Brilliant move on their part.
Yes, it was.
Because that's how they end up catching her in a lie. That Monday, one of the brothers returned to ask about his father again. Lizzie, not knowing that she had been being watched and the farm was being watched by them, said that Paul had returned Sunday and left again that morning for Burlingham. So they immediately knew she was lying, because if
Yep.
he had come home, they would have seen him.
That's right.
The brothers then returned next with a constable from town. This time, during questioning, Lizzie lost her temper, grabbing a club. The men pushed past her and discovered a lit lantern sitting next to a pile of coal oil soaked rags next to the lantern, leading them to believe that she was about to burn this place down again.
Oh, jeez.
The one that had been rebuilt already from her
Right.
burning it down. While inspecting the barn, the brothers discovered some freshly disturbed hay and soil. So I believe at this time the constable took Lizzie to town because she said, he's in Burlingham. I'll take you and show you. So the constable left with Lizzie to go to town to basically find Paul. And at this time, the brothers are still back at the farm. They start looking around, basically assuming that Lizzie had killed their father. So they're trying to find where his body is. And in the barn, they find freshly disturbed hay and soil. They were sure this was their father's grave. They started digging, and instead they found the bodies of two women, one young, one old. The women's clothing was found in the house. They were bound. They were bound and buried
Yes.
in the barn.
By their wrists, knees, and ankles. They were tied.
Yeah, crazy. It's just such not a typical crime of a woman, Like this, she's different in so many ways. Like the violence that she would do, like just the types. Usually, a lot of the ones we do, it's by poisoning or
Right.
less direct ways. But she had no problem with directly executing people, tying them up, whatever it took.
Right. Well, it was said that she was very strong. She was very strong
yeah.
for her size. Most people underestimated her when they came into
Yeah.
contact with her. Most people. Yeah.
Yeah. The women's clothing was found inside the house. Lizzie was arrested. She then began her insanity act again, saying that she was seeing frogs, lizards, and snakes tearing off her clothing. She ended up being shackled and continued to act insane nonetheless. Examination of the dead women's bodies revealed that the younger woman had been shot 7 times and the older woman 8, both in the heart. They were executed. That was her MO as far as like style of murder, is that she would shoot the person through their heart multiple times.
Yeah.
That
This
to
was
me
also
says there's
later tied to a ritual, wasn't it? Like some sort of gypsy ritual.
Was it? I
There
thought
was-
she basically just said later, like, make sure they're dead. Like, there's no denying someone's dead when you shoot them through the heart multiple times.
Right. But there was some sort of speculation, though, that it was some sort of ritual where you shoot someone in the heart and you make a complete circle, and then I don't know. I don't know why they do it, but I read somewhere that it was tied to some sort of gypsy ritual, and that may have been. But I think that's only 5 shots is what they do, and it could be like 5 shots, maybe the point of a 5-pointed star or something. I don't know, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. The women were Margaret and Sarah McQuillan, Margaret being 50 and Sarah being her daughter at 19 years old. They were identified as the dead women. They were from Newburgh, a full day's wagon ride from the Halliday farm. And the question was kind of, from the authority standpoint, like, why were they here? How did they get here? How did they end up dead on the Halliday farm? Charles Grieve, a neighbor of the Halliday farm, searched the farm late one night. So they find these women's bodies. They don't find Paul, and everyone kind of leaves the farm. However, this neighbor, Charles, he's still convinced his buddy Paul is dead, and he's somewhere on the property. He never liked Lizzie, and he knows that he's about to leave the farm because he only is at the farm during summers. He leaves for winter, and he didn't really want to get involved in the whole process if he did find the body of going to court and all that stuff. So one night, like the last night that he was going to be on his farm before he left for winter, he snuck onto the Halliday farm and started looking around. He used a crowbar to gain entry into the home and noticed that a floorboard didn't quite match the rest. It was a little bit, it wasn't as secured to the floor as the rest,
Right.
and apparently the brothers and the authorities had missed it. He pried up that floorboard, and in some soft soil, he found Paul Halliday's face underneath some disturbed soil in there, and the rest of his body. He'd been battered in the head with something and shot through the heart 3 times. The gun that was used in all 3 murders was the one that Paul had borrowed for his own protection from Lizzie, which is just adds some, it just makes it even worse, really.
Yes,
the
it
gun that he
does.
got to protect himself is what ended up being the murder weapon for all 3 of
Right.
these.
That's a big strike in the gun control case, huh? You know, people always
Yeah, I
talk
guess.
about like it's kind of hard to get shot if there's no gun around. You know.
Well, also, when you're a responsible gun owner, keep your gun locked away from anyone like Lizzie, or
Yeah.
kids or anyone that you don't trust.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone
I
other
mean,
than yourself, really.
right. If you didn't have a murderer in your house living with you, it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. You know. You could-
Yeah. That was a big part of the tragedy of the Sandy Hook case, too. The mother, knowing her son had so many mental problems, had the one thing she taught him to do was go shooting and had guns around all over the place. And look what he does,
Yep, that's right.
After that week's discovery, the farm would come to be known as Murderer's Gulch, hence the title of the book that we got, Murderer's Gulch.
Yep.
Lizzie was held in jail for a year waiting trial. She denied the murders and went back to her active insanity yet again. She attempted several times to protest/commit suicide. She went on such a severe hunger strike at one point that the jail physician had to actually pump food into her stomach for 3 days straight. Then she used the wood stove in her cell to try. That's how old this case is. Like the cells actually had wood burning stoves in them to keep them warm. So she had like a stove in her fucking cell,
Wow.
which she of course used to try and burn down the jail. She then got her hands on some broken glass from a window in the jail and attempted to cut her throat before being stopped by a guard.
I
Eventually,
don't
the
think she would
jailer.
have done it. I think if she wanted to commit suicide, she'd have done it already.
You think so?
I don't think she would have committed suicide. Nah.
You think it was just like a more notch to even adding more clout to her insanity thing?
Yep. I think that's all it was. I think
And
she
just
knew
creating
exactly
chaos.
how far it would take to kill somebody because she had killed so many people, probably
Right.
people that we don't even know about. And
Yeah.
I think there was no intent of killing herself in prison.
Yeah, because realistically, if you have a piece of glass, right, and you are intent on doing the job, it doesn't take more than a second or two. Like a jailer could not get to you once he realized what you were doing before the job was, because if you do it good enough, you're not gonna be able to stop the bleeding.
Right. And it's silent.
Especially back then in a
And it's
jail,
silent.
kind of like it's not like so.
Yeah.
Eventually, the jailer had gotten tired of keeping such a close eye on her and her chaos that he ended up drilling a loop into the concrete floor and attaching a chain to it to keep her from basically moving more than like a few feet radius within her cell. The sheriff was named Harrison Beecher, and he was the main reason that the public believed that Lizzie had been Jack the Ripper, because he was firmly convinced that she was, and told newspaper writers of this belief, and it got all over the place because of this sheriff, Harrison Beecher. He was believing some of the shit she said. She was feeding him all kinds of crap of shit she'd seen, stuff she'd
Right.
done. She'd convinced him that she was in London during the time of the Whitechapel murders, but she was really keen on reading crimes. She liked that. She was one of those people we've studied before, a criminal that liked to read about other criminals' acts and stuff.
Right.
And so she
And
probably
also-
wanted credit for that.
And also, wouldn't this sheriff want credit for catching Jack the Ripper? I mean, come on, dude.
No doubt. That's a good point that I didn't think
Seriously.
about.
I mean, I would say that too. I'd be like, yeah, here she is. That's Jack the Ripper right there. I caught her. I
Yeah.
mean, if you can commit insurance fraud just from burning down a house and being like, it burned down. I don't know what happened. Then, I mean, you
Right.
could easily be the sheriff that caught Jack the Ripper in that time.
Yep. And so in comes Nellie Bly into the story, now famous for spending 10 days in Blackwell's Island undercover as a madwoman. You can go back and listen to our whole episode on that. And for circumnavigating the world, among other badass feats. She had heard of Lizzie Halliday and her crimes through the newspapers. And to this point, no reporters had gotten anything out of Lizzie, who would stay silent during their attempts. But if anyone could get answers out of Lizzie, it was Nellie. So in 1893, Nellie gave it a shot. In the third week of October, Bly journeyed to Monticello and landed. The first interview of Lizzie Halliday granted to a member of the press. The story ran 7 columns, at the end of which Bly pressed hard to extract a confession. She reported this exchange. So we have a little exchange here between Nellie and Lizzie. Nellie, did you or did you not kill those people? Lizzie looked up. There was a real alarm in her face. She said, I have been crazy. I was drugged, she said defiantly. Nellie then says, tell me, did you do it yourself? Lizzie then replies, what shall I say, dear? She then turned to the sheriff to kind of ask the sheriff, like, what, whether she should say or not. Nellie then says, are you guilty or innocent? Tell me now. I may be able to help you. Anyway, I am going away and you will never see me again. So at that point, it was drawing close to the hour of midnight. Her interview was drawing to an end, and she didn't think she'd be coming back. So she was trying to get what she could out of Lizzie while she could. Lizzie then responded, some other time. My head feels bad now. Some other time. However, within 2 weeks, Lizzie Halliday sent word through the sheriff that she wanted to see Bly again and tell her everything. Bly's interview appeared in the World in November 5th in a full-page story. To Bly, Lizzie revealed that she had been married 6 times and she was only 28 years old. She claimed to have been drugged by a gang of people she knew but could not identify and fear for her life, and that they had forced her to witness the killings of her husband and the McQuillan women. She gave detailed accounts of the murders without admitting to doing them herself, which reminded me of Ted Bundy. Remember when he was doing that whole act of like, theoretically, if I were to have done, and he would go into detailed accounts of what he did, but not taking accountability for it.
Like the OJ book, if I did it.
Yeah, same type of thing. She also gave details of the killing of a peddler some months before, 12 miles from her home, but said that she hadn't committed that crime either. So yeah, she said that the gypsies did that, but she was there to witness it. She was there to witness everything and knew exactly how it went down. Everything, different parts, different states, everything else. And it's just a coincidence that she was just always there.
Right, of course.
Reporters were able to confirm all 6 of Lizzie's marriages, and several of the husbands had died under suspicious circumstances, all of which we've already gone through in the crime line. But this is where all this stuff comes to light. Most, like Paul Halliday, were much older men with some sort of pension. The reporters also verified the peddler's slang, which at the time had been blamed on wandering gypsies. In one last-ditch effort to get Lizzie to admit her crimes, Nellie offered her $200 towards her defense if she confessed. Lizzie grabbed Nellie's arm and then at her dress as Nellie fled the cell with a deliberate intent that gave Nellie chills. Nellie talked about that moment where she's like, she changed. Like, I saw something in her face change as soon as she saw that money. So we know what she was motivated by through this whole thing. And Nellie Bly got a little sample of that in that moment. And that would be the last time that Nellie Bly would ever visit Lizzie again. In June of
Lizzie was like, you got the $200 on you, laddie.
Right. Can I see it?
Stay for tea?
In June of 1894, Lizzie's trial began in front of a packed courtroom. Only 3 jurors would decide her fate. Thomas McQuillan took the stand and solved the mystery of why his wife and daughter were in the area of the Halliday farm at the time of their deaths. They were basically lured there by Lizzie, who had gone to their home and offered Margaret, the mother, $2 a day for a month's work. She had taken up the offer and gone to the farm with her. Lizzie then returned to the home of the McQuillans and offered, and told the father, Thomas, that Margaret had broken her leg and needed help returning. Thomas then sent his daughter. Man, he must feel sick for this moment where he believes her and sends his daughter back with Lizzie as well. Neither of them would ever be seen again. On the stand, Thomas broke down in tears. Didn't look well for Lizzie to the 3 jurors. Paul's son also took the stand. All of the pieces of the murders were falling into place in front of everyone in the courtroom. Lizzie never took the stand, and her plea was not guilty by reason of insanity. Although Sheriff Beecher and the man that rented the horses to her that she stole and sold off took the stand for her defense and said that they believe Lizzie had always been insane. Lizzie was deemed sane by physicians that evaluated her, and they based their belief. This is funny to me. This is a tell of the times. This is still in the 1800s, and just kind of
this is hilarious. It really
oh
is.
my god, yeah.
When
So
I heard this,
so
I
the
was
doctors,
like, seriously?
yeah, the doctors that evaluated her did a full evaluation, and they basically deemed her sane, which we believe is, she was sane. But the reason for why they deemed her sane, the multiple reasons, one of which was that she had a lack of horizontal wrinkles on her forehead, and also the fact that her head perspirated at a normal rate. So,
wow, I
that-
think
that-
I'm
that's
totally
what made her sane.
insane.
right,
So many forehead wrinkles. I must be the most
Right.
insane person. I'm so glad I didn't live during that time, dude. Oh my god.
I have wrinkles on my forehead too, man. I'd be locked away forever.
Oh my gosh, we're so insane, bro. It's crazy.
And so on June 27th, Lizzie was found guilty of the murders and sentenced to the electric chair, which I was surprised it was even around back then. It had already been around for 4 years before her sentencing.
Yeah, but
on the way out of the
no
courtroom,
women
she
were
had
in it yet, right? Or one other
I don't
woman?
I don't
had
think
been?
so. I don't think so.
Okay.
They were still figuring that thing out. That was a very scary time to be in that chair.
Oh, super sketchy. They're like, do we wet the sponge? Do we not? I don't know
Right.
what's going on here. How many votes
Right.
do we need?
Yeah, I
Oh,
watched a
sketch.
whole thing about executions, like a Discovery Channel special or whatever, and like they've just screwed up so many of them over the years. And one of the ways they screwed up the electric chair there for a minute was they cheaped out and they got a synthetic sponge instead of a legit sponge, and it doesn't conduct the same. Like, and so the person was just being
fries.
like caught on fire, like
Yeah.
just crazy shit.
The first guy to ever, try the electric chair, that happened to him. They wetted everything, but then they like shocked him, and then he sat there for a minute, and then he came back to life. So they're like, oh shit. So instead of re-wetting the stuff, they just turn it back on. You see what I'm
God.
saying? They just turned it back
That's
on
brutal.
and basically charred the man with 2,000 volts for minutes.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
I've thought about it, and like in the different traditional ways that you could be executed by, by the court system and justice system. You got hanging, you got lethal injection, you got electrocution, you got the gas. They still have the gas chamber in some states, I believe.
Right.
And then there's firing squad. For me, hanging all day. Like if it's done
Hanging?
right, it seems. Yeah, dude. It seems if they do it right, it snaps your neck. Like it's a whole ratio they have your body weight to the height of the drop. The drop is supposed to snap your neck. You're not supposed to strangle to death. So if it's done properly, it's quick and done. Period.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me seems much better than being shot or being electrocuted or being even the injection thing is just so creepy to me. I don't like that.
Why? You think it's they say it's not
I
painful,
don't like
but
I don't
who
like
would
needles.
know?
First of all, I don't like anything being injected into me. Period.
Yeah.
So I don't. It's just I don't like it.
I hear you. Okay, interesting. I don't know if a lot of people
And
would
hanging
choose
is just so
hanging, man.
traditional. I'd almost feel like I'm tapping into like my old ancestors, like the old Wild West vibe.
Yeah.
You know?
And you get to stand up there in front of everybody and say whatever you want to say. You get that one last thing. It's not like you're
Yeah,
standing
kiss my ass.
blindfolded in front of a firing squad where like nobody really cares. But when you're
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. All right. Hanging.
I don't know. Which would you choose?
Oh man. I don't think I would do hanging. I wouldn't want to. I don't know if I'd want that. I think I'd rather do like firing squad, something like that where it's quick, especially if I'm going to be
Yeah.
blindfolded and I don't know. Something like that, or maybe injection. Needles don't really bother me too much, so I'd rather go out just peaceful, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or just shoot me while I'm sleeping one night, I mean, it's after midnight, it's my day to be executed. There we go.
That's the brutal part about the death penalty is knowing the exact minute that you're
Knowing.
gonna die. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like they wouldn't give you that luxury of like, oh, we'll just come in and shoot you while you're sleeping. That would be
Nope.
too easy.
Exactly.
You gotta take that walk to the execution
Exactly.
chamber and all that.
Yeah, I would say lethal injection. I'd probably choose then. Yeah.
Pretty brutal in those states where they let you choose. I think they still do that where they let you choose from a few options. That's a tough decision.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
On the way out of the courtroom, Lizzie would attack the accompanying sheriff, Harrison Beecher, who was actually wearing gloves in anticipation of her maybe trying to attack him. However, her bite was so hard, she bit through the gloves and into his hands that he wore, into his hands. He would end up developing a serious infection as a result of the bite, and the resulting wound became so badly infected that he almost lost his hand. He almost had to have his hand amputated from that bite.
Jesus, I wonder if she'd have bit him if he wasn't wearing gloves. Maybe she was like, "Oh, you trying to wear gloves? Do you think I can't handle some gloves? Feel every piece of this, you know."
Watch this, motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. It's like she just seems like the type of person that would do something out of spite just because somebody thinks that are one step ahead, you know.
Oh yeah. Believe it or not, she would kill again. I mean, that's one thing we see. You cannot underestimate her for a second. Originally sentenced to the execution in the electric chair, Lizzie would end up being reevaluated by the courts, wondering if they screwed up. You know, Lizzie would end up being granted clemency by Governor Flowers based off a declaration by a group of physicians that she was insane. Instead, she was incarcerated for life at the Matawan prison for the criminally insane. So she ended up back at Matawan. She got out of the death penalty. They ended up deeming her insane after all, after a review. So
lucky.
While there, she continued to exhibit dangerous tendencies and was generally given wide berth by other inmates and attendants. She was the crazy one in the crazy place. At least that's the act she was putting on. She was the one that people were afraid of. Her and one other person who she would end up teaming up with for a crime, which we'll see. In 1897, she took offense at her treatment by one of the attendants, together with a second inmate, Jane Shannon, who was considered the most dangerous inmate in the institution. So they probably have the top two most dangerous teaming up here.
No doubt.
They ended up isolating the attendant in a bathroom. Shannon knocked the attendant, Miss Kate Ward, to the ground and jumped on her. Halliday then stuffed a towel into her mouth, and the two of them began to pound the victim with their fists, Lizzie pulling out her hair and scratching her face mercilessly with her fingernails. Finally, when rescued from the assault, Miss Ward was unconscious. She did, however, manage to survive with no lingering injuries. Both attackers were secured in isolation. So that's the first attack.
Right.
She's still a huge threat anywhere she is, Lizzie, man. Because I think we talked about it. We talked about it in the Heemeyer episode, Old Marv, about like someone who has 24/7 all the time in the world, and they're angry to sit and plot.
That's
like
right.
You're just going about your daily. That's these inmates in this ward. You know, they're just kind of all day. You screw up one little thing, one little detail.
You know what?
And they're gonna get it.
Yeah, that's right. You know what I'm so surprised at though? I'm surprised that with help from Jane Shannon, they didn't kill this woman. I'm surprised like it didn't escalate. When two matches get thrown into gasoline, how come it didn't ignite and they didn't just destroy this woman? I feel like if
they didn't
Lizzie
have a
was there by
weapon.
herself,
If they had a weapon, they would have definitely finished her off. But yeah, I don't know how quick. Maybe it was only like 30 seconds, before someone was able to save her. Who knows?
Or maybe they were just trying to teach her a lesson. Maybe they didn't want to kill her because they needed her and they liked her, but she did something wrong.
Maybe.
So they were like, "We'll teach you a lesson."
Yeah. Lizzie almost successfully escaped at one point after acquiring some street clothes and joining a group of visitors to the prison. She made it through every door but the last before finally being discovered by some guards. Can you imagine if she'd gotten out like Ted Bundy style, was out on the streets again.
Just snuck right out.
Yeah.
Nice.
6 years later, after relatively stable behavior, Lizzie struck again, only this time more viciously, murdering the only woman who had ever showed her any kindness, a prison nurse by the name of Miss Nellie Wicks, age 24. According to the details, Miss Wicks, due to her ability to relate with the other inmates, had been recently promoted to the head of the women's unit. In her new position, she had developed a fondness for the difficult to manage Lizzie, giving her certain privileges within the group. Lizzie, in turn, returned the kindness and appeared to develop a sort of maternal affection for Miss Wicks. So she's showing some humanity here. She actually is being kind and can be trusted for a little bit. After a time, Miss Wicks informed the group, including Lizzie, that she would soon be leaving the institution to pursue her studies to become a medical nurse. Lizzie, this enraged her. She didn't want her Miss Nellie to ever leave.
Right.
Lizzie begged her not to leave. Regardless, Miss Wicks remained resolute. Over her last few days, it was general knowledge that Lizzie began making verbal threats, saying that she would kill the young nurse rather than see her leave. As threats of this sort were common for Lizzie, they were ignored. However, on her final day in the institution at 8 a.m. in the morning, Miss Wicks entered a bathroom, Lizzie slipped in behind her and knocked her to the floor. Before the nurse could react, Lizzie had taken her keys and locked the door from the inside. So she got her key ring off of her after knocking her down, locked them together in a room. She then returned to the defenseless young woman and using a pair of scissors that she'd stolen, she was allowed these scissors for sewing. Oh man, she had been given some privileges.
Why?
You let Lizzie have scissors.
Why? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Give her some of those fucking rounded ones, like they give kindergartners with the plastic on them.
Right. I'd even not want her to have those, honestly.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't give her anything. Like, girl, you better fold this paper and rip it along the damn.
Yeah.
Fold.
So using the scissors that she had somehow been allowed to use for sewing, she proceeded to stab Miss Wicks over 200 times in the face and head. Her screams alerted the attendants who eventually managed to come to her aid. However, it was too late. She died less than an hour later. While being taken into a cell in solitary confinement, Lizzie reportedly said, rather calmly, quote, "She won't leave me now." While incarcerated, the legend of Lizzie Halliday continued to grow. In an article that appeared in Alexandria Gazette, Halliday, who by at that time had already been called the Wolf of Sullivan County, was given the additional title of Gypsy Queen and said to have been the leader of, quote, a little band which roved over the land of Hudson and Mohawk Valleys. So she was supposedly the leader of this gypsy band, as we kind of brought up. Mm-hmm. That became well known. People believed that.
But you know how stories can really be exaggerated and get out of hand, and I think she just fit that. You know, it's a much better story, the Gypsy Queen. You know.
Yeah. The article goes on to say inaccurately that she and the band had come to Burlingame in 1902, where Paul Halliday fell in love with the Gypsy Queen. Following their marriage, the band of gypsies celebrated the event, elected another queen, and moved on. So
okay.
Definitely far-fetched. Like, they're just coming up with some crazy stories.
Do gypsies even have queens? If anybody knows that,
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think they'd want, like, that type of a hierarchy, you know? Like,
right.
They're all free gypsies, you know?
Yeah, they seem kind of every person for themselves type of thing. I mean, help each other out, but at the same time that nobody rules anybody else. At least it seems like that to me.
Yeah, I don't know gypsy law. I don't know.
Yeah, me either.
To further add intrigue and mystery to the murder of Miss Halliday and the McQuillans, the article attributes their deaths to ritual shootings described as shot 5 times in the heart, the five bullets forming a circle. So that was what you were talking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On June 28th, 1918, while still incarcerated at Matawan Asylum, Lizzie Halliday, once described as, quote, the worst woman on earth, quietly passed away. She was 54 years old.
Yeah, it's too good for her,
that's where we end this case.
It's too good for her to quietly pass away, don't you think?
Right. And man, 54, that's pretty damn young. But I guess not for that time period, you know?
Yeah.
That's a long life for the 1800s.
Yeah, like we said, most people passed in their 50s, and she took many people's lives before they were 30. So,
yeah,
she was a horrible person, no doubt. How have we not heard of Lizzie Halliday? How has most people not? I mean, people talk about Elizabeth Bathory and stuff like that. And I mean, Jesus, she was after that more recent than Elizabeth Bathory.
One thing that never ceases to amaze me in doing this podcast is just how there's just an endless stream of bad people and murderers to really sink your teeth into. They're out there.
Yeah,
it's like, how could this one slip through her fingers? But like, we'll find more just like her that were like, how did we not heard about this one? You know?
Yeah, yep. We're coming up on free episode 91, and yeah, that's unreal, man. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there, and but fortunately, we can at least bring up the awareness, spread the awareness, man. These people are around. They're still around.
Let's put it this way. I have more of a problem whittling down what case to do than I do finding a case to do. Like, it's more like, fuck, there's so many good ones.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And plus, people give us great suggestions, and it's hard to go through all of them. But we are looking at your suggestions, guys. We do appreciate them. Keep them coming.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We got an Oh My Gaia read?
Oh, of course, man. Oh My Gaia. Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. At Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. There's a tons of scents to choose from, guys. There's vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, it's one of my favorites, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle. And we have our very own scent called True Crime Pine. Has our old school logo on it. Very cool. It was made just for us from Oh My Gaia. And because you guys are True Crime Guys listeners, you can get 15% off your order by using the word creeper, CREEPER, for 15% off at ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com or at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram. Guys, if you're looking to change from your regular Speed Stick or Old Spice, aluminum-filled deodorant, and you want to try something natural, give Oh My Gaia a try. Great customer service, a great product, and there's definitely a scent that's going to tickle your fancy. Am I right, Lauren?
You're right. You get to support us, support the podcast, support a small business owner.
Yes.
During a time like this, and smell great. It's a fucking win-win-win. You can't lose.
That reminds me, guys, if you have the opportunity to order from a small business, do that. Because a lot of small businesses don't have the big internet presence. They don't have the big warehouses and sorting facilities and all the advertisement. So if you can order, they'll be more than happy to ship to you, I'm sure. So just keep that in mind during this. Support local, support small business.
Yeah, and they're not tied into the elite, the 1%ers that are basically finding ways around taxes and have offshore accounts and shit. Like they're
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. These are Americans just like us who are trying to work for themselves, create their own manner of income so they can live their life the way they want to live it. I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's the real American dream.
Yeah.
But all right. Anyways.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you to some people who have taken the time to go and rate and review the show on iTunes and other means. As we've said, if you don't want to write anything, you just put if you want a shout out, you got to put something in the comments part of it. So just put a fire emoji or something, and so we can give you a shout out. So these people I want to say thank you to: Sarah from Indy, Damien Sampieri from Australia, down under.
Nice.
Brittany Renee, 86, and Laura Grimes in the US. So thank you guys for taking the time to go and write a review. It helps the show, as you guys know.
Yes.
iTunes, I wanted to mention, I'm having a problem with it, or not iTunes, Apple Podcast app. I've been having problems with it, and I've had several people as well tell me they've been having problems with it where our new episodes aren't popping into the feed right away. It's taking like an extra week almost, and I've seen the same thing. So it's not us. We're doing the same thing we've always done. We've posted the show onto our RSS feed, which goes out to all the different apps. All the other apps are getting our show right away like it should. Like I've checked Stitcher, I've checked everything. It's just Apple's feed. I don't know if it's maybe if your phone isn't updated, if you haven't updated your Apple shit. Like I haven't. I don't do that very often, so that's probably why I may be experiencing that too.
Maybe just more people are on Apple Podcast and it's just slowing down the server. Because I'm on iTunes right now, and our new episode, which is the Tulsa Hex House, that should be the newest one as of today, which is what, Sunday? What's today's date?
Yeah, Sunday the 22nd.
Sunday the 22nd. So as of Sunday the 22nd of March, the Tulsa Hex House should be the top thing, and it is on iTunes. But you're right, on Apple Podcasts, and then also on Podcast Addict, which draws from the Apple Podcast server, it's not on there, and it says like there's some kind of error. So I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if it's just the higher.
It's also categorizing them weird. It's also categorizing our episodes into seasons on iTunes, which we don't do. Because like the top one in my podcast, my Apple Podcast feed says Master Bob still. But if you scroll down, it says unknown season, and then there's the Tulsa Hex House. So I don't know.
What?
It is in there now? Yeah, I don't know what the hell it's doing. It's like categorized. So honestly, I would actually recommend, even if you have an Apple, use a different app for listening to podcasts. I know it's a big switch, but if you're having a problem getting our episode, even if you just want to hear our episode, download Stitcher real quick or whatever. Stitcher I actually used to kind of hate on them for sound quality, but I was listening to it this week, and it sounds like they've fixed that. Like their quality sounds great, and their feeds are. I like the format of the app, and their feeds are legit. Like as soon as we put our episode up, it's in there. So,
right. Also,
I don't know. There's so many apps now. There's so many apps. You don't have to. You don't have to lean on Apple Podcast app. Use a different one.
That's right. Use Spotify. Spotify is great.
Yep, we're on there too.
That's right, and it's updated on there as far as I can tell.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, Spotify is really making a comeback.
Yeah.
Not making a comeback, but they're really making a presence in podcasts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are listening on Spotify now. That's a great way to listen. Spotify or Podbean app, either one. Because Podbean will have all your other podcasts as well. Yeah, that's right.
So
all right. But it's out
and
there,
we
guys.
still love Podbean, man. We've had sponsor companies come to us and say, hey, we want you to switch your feed over to us, and we'll do all this advertising for you, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, Podbean is a large reason for any success we've had is because they've had us on their main pages for as far as true crime, top true crime podcasts, all that stuff. Like you go to their main page on Podbean, we're right there on the front. We've been on there for years, and we've gotten like 15,000 followers on Podbean because of that. Just because when other apps don't do that shit, we're not even in Apple's top 200. We're not in any of their featured shit, and they never do anything like that. So I don't know. I always feel like the bigger ones like Apple, it almost seems like they help certain like more well-known, like NPR puts out something and immediately they're on the front page or whatever it is. If you're connected to a bigger network, you immediately get the better treatment. You get put on all this stuff. But if you're just like putting out good shit, they don't care.
They don't care. That's right. I mean, even when we've had huge spikes in reviews and putting out episodes, and I'm like, how are we not growing? How are we not moving up? It's just, I don't understand the algorithm. They do.
And you look at some of the podcasts that are on the top 200, right? And you look and they have like a third of the reviews we have. They've been around longer than us. Like, it's just like, I don't understand how this works. How did you get on here?
What's the true algorithm?
What's it based off of?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but either way, guys, we're just going to keep putting out good shit. And there's ways to listen. If you don't know, email us at truecrimeguys.com or truecrimeguys@gmail.com. Or you can hit us up on social media at True Crime Guys. We could help you guys out. Find something on Instagram, Twitter, all True Crime Guys. Facebook, True Crime Guys. True Crime Guys closed group on Facebook as well. There's plenty of other creepers who are dealing with the same shit and can help you guys. Lots of podcast veterans out there. So there's plenty of resources, guys. If Apple wants to be all fucking weird, there's plenty of other ways to listen.
Yep. And check out our Patreon page. We haven't mentioned it all episode. Look at that.
Wow.
Patreon.com/truecrimeguys. If you are pent up, you're in the house and you're quarantined, $2. I know it's you're trying to save money right now, but $2 gets you access to a whole lot of entertainment, a lot of episodes and stuff. So I think it's worth it during a time like this.
Episodes that you won't be able to hear any other way, pretty much.
Right.
I mean, there's 50 to 60 at least, somewhere around there. Just
episodes
Patreon
you haven't heard.
That's right. Yep. So, plenty of True
Check
Crime
it out.
Guys to listen to, guys.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, that about does it. I think next week, actually, speaking of Patreon, isn't next week a Patreon exclusive?
It is.
We've done 3 freebies in a row already.
That's right.
Wow.
Patreon
All right.
time.
Well, if you want to hear next week's episode, there's another reason to join Patreon right now.
That's right. Going to be a good one.
Yep. All right, guys. We'll see you next week if you're patrons. Later.
All right. Keep creeping, guys.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder charming.